Imagine this. You text someone, you're waiting for their reply, and nothing. Hours pass, then days, and suddenly your brain is screaming at you. Why are they not responding? Did I do something wrong? Are they ignoring me? It's strange, isn't it? The more unavailable someone becomes, the more our mind starts chasing them, valuing them, and even obsessing over them. But here's the truth. This isn't just your imagination. It's psychology. And if you understand it, you can unlock a hidden power that most people never realize they have. The power of being unavailable. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to ghost people, block your friends, or vanish like Batman every time someone needs you. What I'm talking about is a psychological principle so powerful that it shapes how people view you, respect you, and even how they treat you in relationships, careers, and life. Because here's the truth. When you are too available, too eager, too quick to respond, you unknowingly reduce your own value in the eyes of others. But when you master the art of being unavailable, strategically, not cruelly, you suddenly become magnetic. You become respected. You become someone people can't ignore. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover today. So let's start with a simple question. Why does scarcity make us value things more? If you've ever noticed how people lose their minds when a product says limited edition, or how every sale that screams only 2 hours left makes people rush to buy, then you've seen this principle in action. Psychologists call it the scarcity effect. The less accessible something seems, the more our brain assigns value to it. It's the same with people. The less available you are, the more others perceive you as valuable. Think about it. If you had a friend who's always free, always texting back in 1 second, always dropping everything just to meet you, a part of you starts to take them for granted. You don't mean to, but your brain begins saying, well, they'll always be there. On the flip side, imagine a friend who's busy, focused on their goals, and sometimes you need to actually wait for their time. You value those interactions more because they're not always guaranteed. That's scarcity at work. And if you understand how to use it, you can shift how others perceive you. Now let's dig deeper into the psychology. Have you heard of the intermittent reinforcement effect? It's a concept from behavioral psychology where rewards given unpredictably create stronger attachment than consistent ones. Casinos exploit this with slot machines. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but that unpredictability keeps you hooked. In human relationships, when you're always available, always present, people get used to you like background noise. But when you balance presence with absence, you create mystery, uncertainty, and anticipation. That anticipation is addictive. That's why someone who doesn't text back instantly often becomes more intriguing than the one who replies in 0.5 seconds with an essay. But let's clear something up. Being unavailable doesn't mean playing childish games or purposely ignoring people just to look cool. That backfires. Instead, it's about living your life in such a way that your presence is meaningful and your absence is felt. When you're not instantly available, you send a powerful subconscious message. My time is valuable. My energy is valuable. And if I'm giving it to you, it means something. That message is what makes people respect you, admire you, and even pursue you more. Take relationships, for example. Have you ever noticed that the person who cares less often has more power in the relationship? Now, I'm not saying you should stop caring, but it's true that the person who's less available tends to be perceived as higher value. Why? Because they're not desperately seeking validation. They're not trying to prove their worth every second. They're living their life, and that makes others want to be part of it. That's why some people can walk into a room, barely say a word, and still command attention, because they radiate a sense of self-sufficiency. And it's not just about romance. This principle shows up everywhere, in business, in friendships, even in family dynamics. Ever notice how the busiest person at work often gets the most respect? Why is that? Because their time is scarce. If they agree to meet you, you know it matters. Meanwhile, the person who's always free, they don't get the same weight behind their words. Availability affects perception, and perception shapes reality. Here's where the humor comes in. We've all had that one friend who's like a human Amazon Prime, always available in 1 day or less. You text them at 2 a.m., "Hey, I'm hungry," and suddenly they're at your door with pizza. As great as that sounds, the sad truth is, people stop valuing it. It becomes expected, and expected things lose their charm. It's like free Wi-Fi. Nobody says thank you for Wi-Fi anymore, but if the Wi-Fi goes out, suddenly the whole world is falling apart. That's the power of being unavailable. It makes people notice your value in ways availability never can. But let's go even deeper, because this isn't just a social trick. It's tied to how our brain works. The human mind is designed to chase uncertainty. Think of it like this. If I gave you your favorite food every single day, 3 times a day, soon you'd get bored of it. But if I gave it to you once in a while, unexpectedly, it would feel like a treat. That's why absence sharpens desire. Psychologists call this the contrast effect. We only recognize and appreciate something fully when we experience its opposite. Availability is sweet only when unavailability exists. Without unavailability, your presence becomes invisible. Now here's the catch. People often misunderstand this and swing to the extreme. They become so unavailable that they lose connection altogether. That's not power. That's self-sabotage. True power lies in balance. You don't disappear completely. You stay just unavailable enough to create respect, but present enough to build connection. It's like music. Silence between notes is what makes the melody beautiful. Without that silence, it's just noise. Let's look at some real-world examples. Celebrities, for instance, are masters of unavailability. Why do you think people go crazy when Taylor Swift drops an album out of nowhere? Or when Elon Musk suddenly tweets something cryptic? Because they're not flooding you with constant access. Their scarcity builds anticipation. Compare that with influencers who post 20 times a day, overexpose themselves, and eventually fade into the background. Scarcity creates legacy. Overexposure kills mystery. And think about history. Powerful leaders, philosophers, and thinkers often mastered this art. Nietzsche, for example, often spoke about detachment from the crowd. He lived much of his life in solitude, and though people didn't understand him then, today his words carry weight precisely because he wasn't always available, always chasing approval. Even in Eastern philosophy, this principle exists. Buddha himself withdrew from society to gain wisdom, and when he returned, his absence made people value his presence infinitely more. But let's bring this back to you. How can you apply this in your own life? Start by valuing your own time. Don't always say yes to everything. Don't always drop your priorities just to make others comfortable. Learn to set boundaries. When someone knows that your time is not endless, they respect it more. When you focus on your growth, your goals, your passions, you naturally become a little less available. And ironically, that makes people chase you more. If you're in a relationship, don't lose yourself by being overly available. Give space. Space creates attraction. Space creates appreciation. If you're in a career, don't be the person who always says yes to extra work just to look good. Be the person whose time is valuable enough that people feel honored when you say yes. And in friendships, remember, always being available doesn't make you a better friend. It just makes you easier to overlook. Now let me share a funny but true example. Have you ever noticed how people treat you differently when you ignore a few calls versus when you answer immediately? Suddenly, when you do pick up, the energy is different. They're more attentive, more careful with their words. That's because your unavailability has reminded them that you're not obligated to them. You're giving them a choice gift, your time, and gifts are valued more than entitlements. At the core, the power of being unavailable is really about self-respect. When you stop throwing your time, energy, and presence at everyone like confetti, you start sending a powerful signal. I respect myself enough to choose where I show up, and that's contagious. When you respect yourself, others are forced to respect you too. But let me make this clear. Being unavailable should never come from insecurity or fear. If you're avoiding people because you're scared, that's not power. If you're ignoring people just to manipulate them, that's not power. That's weakness disguised as control. True unavailability comes from fullness, not emptiness. It comes from having a life so rich, so focused, so purpose-driven that you naturally can't be at everyone's beck and call. That's what makes it authentic, and authenticity is what makes it powerful. So, here's the truth most people don't want to hear. If you're too available, too easy to reach, too desperate to be seen, you'll always be undervalued. But if you learn the art of strategic unavailability, not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect, you'll unlock influence, attraction, and respect on a level that constant availability could never give you. And now let me leave you with this final thought. The sun is unavailable half the time, and that's why we worship the sunrise and the sunset. The moon is unavailable half the time, and that's why we look up in awe when it appears. If even the universe knows the power of absence, maybe it's time you did too. So if you're ready to step into that power, start by valuing your own time. Be unavailable not to punish others, but to elevate yourself. Because the truth is, when you stop being available for everything, you start becoming available for what truly matters. And before you go, let me ask you this. Are you going to keep giving your energy to everything and everyone, or are you going to protect it, respect it, and use it to become the best version of yourself? If you got value from this video, make sure to like this video right now, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Be On Time so you don't miss more videos that challenge the way you see reality. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because chances are they're still too available, and it's time they learned the power of stepping back. Because remember, the most magnetic people aren't the ones who are everywhere all the time. They're the ones who appear when it matters most. Be that person.